Hello and welcome to another edition of Motor Cars Enthusiasts. Right off the bat on the old show today, we got official pricing for the brand new WRX from Subaru. The new WRX comes with a 2-liter flat turbocharged 4-cylinder, putting out 268 brake horsepower and 258 pounds-feet of torque. Now 0 to 60 numbers come in right about 5 seconds, and you can get all of this fun with a starting price of $26,295 US dollars. Now that goes all the way up to the limited edition model, which comes in at $31,195 US dollars. And this vehicle will be going on sale at a Subaru dealership very, very soon. And its big brother, we got official pricing on it as the Subaru WRX STI, the high-end version, which comes with a 2.5-liter turbocharged flat 4, making 305 brake horsepower and 290 pounds-feet of torque. 0 to 60 numbers dip down to 4.5 seconds for this particular model. Now this vehicle will be going on sale very, very soon, and depending on the option list, which this thing is kind of maxed out already, the starting price will come in at $34,495 US dollars. This vehicle too will be going on sale very, very soon at a Subaru dealership near you. Next up on the list, well, we've talked about the terrible tragedy that was the sinkhole that opened up right up underneath the Corvette Museum in Kentucky. Now, this particular situation is, what are you going to do with these particular models? Well, General Motors has come in and said that they are going to restore all of these models to their former glory. And they have headed up a guy to put in charge of this particular situation, as all these cars will be going to Detroit to get this restoration done. And it's this fellow, the head of design at General Motors, Ed Welburn. Cannot think of a better person to put ahead of this. Ed is a long time General Motors employee and a big-time car guy and a great guy to boot. I cannot think of a better person to put in charge of this particular situation. And I know that these vehicles are in very, very good hands. Thanks to Ed and his team, they'll get these vehicles done right. Now let's get back to the particular sinkhole and back to the cars that are slaying in the bottom of this deal. The vehicle that to me is the most interesting of all these cars is that Blue Devil, that Z06 ZR1, if you will. It's basically a Z06 underneath it with some of the ZR1 treatments done to it. Now, they built a handful of these models, and they're not meant for the street. They're actually experimental automobiles, so they're not actually for road use. You can't license them for the street, but to me, it's the one of the most interesting of these vehicles. But now let's look, and the folks over at Car and Driver and the folks over at Hagerty teamed up to actually put monetary values. There's a lot of people have talked about this collection being priceless and nothing to be, you know, these cars are just, there's no price that you could put on these particular models. Well, Hagerty did, and the folks over at Car and Driver did. Now, one of the vehicles right off the bat, sitting right next to the Blue Devil, I guess kind of sitting, is that maroon 40th anniversary Corvette. Now, this vehicle, they built a bunch of these in the 40th anniversary year for the Chevrolet Corvette. So, actually restoring this vehicle may not be exactly worth it, as Hagerty only says that this car is worth about $30,000 US dollars. It would cost a lot more to probably put this car back together, especially in the state that it probably is in. Now, this particular vehicle, to me, what I would do with this, and it's what Car and Driver said, was just to replace the automobile. It's not worth it to actually rebuild this car. Even though this car, and that's Hagerty saying that this car is probably in the most pristine of any other 40th anniversary edition model that's actually out now. This car is probably in absolutely pristine condition, low mileage and whatnot. To me, though, what I would do is, being the lowest cost vehicle and having some pretty severe damage to this vehicle, I would keep this car. I would keep it in the situation that it was in, put up a bunch of murals and pictures up of the tragic sinkhole situation, and put this car on display as a monument to what happened that fateful day when the earth opened up and swallowed a bunch of Corvettes right out of the Corvette Museum. So I would think that would be the perfect situation. You can always replace the model with something that's pretty close, redo it to where it's actually pristine, and put it on display as a 40th anniversary edition model. I think that would be way better than trying to restore this, because I think there's one of these vehicles that needs to be kept alive. Now, let's talk about the one that's worth the most, at least to the folks over at Haggerty Insurance. It's this particular vehicle. It's the white 1/1,000,000th edition convertible Corvette. Now, this was the 1,000,000th car to ever come off of the Louisville, Kentucky factory floor. Now, this car, they say, is doggone near priceless. They're costing this vehicle as about $750,000 US of what it's worth, but they say it could be worth in an open auction with no reserve of well over $1,000,000 US. Now, the vehicle has taken quite a bit of a hit. As you look at the A-pillars in the windscreen are just smashed directly down right on the instrument cluster, so this vehicle has taken quite a hit. Not to mention, you can't see the rest of the vehicle and what damage may be lying within. Now, this vehicle's got the most margin of any of the vehicles sitting in that hole, because if it is worth close to $1,000,000, it's not going to cost you near that much to put this car back together. Now, that being said, out of all these vehicles, and an interesting situation was brought up by Haggerty and by Car and Driver, that every one of these cars is going to have a little bit more history behind it, and could every one of them be worth just a tiny bit more because of the history behind the whole sinkhole situation. That every one of these cars you could add an untold amount of money, because a lot of people that buy an automobile, especially a classic automobile, love the story, and that would be my situation. I would think it would be really neat if you owned one of the vehicles that ended up in that sinkhole that fateful day at the Corvette Museum. An interesting situation indeed. Now, the final story is an interesting and weird story, and again with General Motors. It actually just took place, well, last night as far as the taping of this particular program. There is a special race that happens ahead of the Daytona 500. And this special race is called the Sprint Unlimited. And it's a little race for all the pole sitters that happen during the race. Well, after one of the cautions, you see rotating around the track the pace car, which is a brand new Chevrolet SS. Well, the driver of the vehicle, which is this race car driver Todd Bodine, all of a sudden sprinted away from the pack in a rapid rate. Later, you see him get down onto the apron of the racetrack and smoke starts to appear. Now, they didn't roll down the windows on this model, which I thought was a little bit on the strange side, but finally, they had had enough of the smoke, slammed on the brakes and put her to a stop, and you can see all the way to the back of this vehicle. It is on fire. Now, early reports are that the actual situation came down as the actual battery packs and the systems that run all the lighting and whatnot, because these things have more like a police type lights on top of the automobile, and the headlights and taillights are flashing. Apparently one of the batteries may have exploded on this particular situation and caught the back end of this automobile on fire. But a very interesting situation to have an actual caution for the caution car, if you will, as was said in the broadcast. I'll put up the video up on the Facebook page if you want to check this deal out, because it's pretty doggone entertaining. And that's all there was that I thought was worth talking about for this week's Motor Cars Enthusiast. If you want to check out that Car and Driver deal, I'll put the link down in the show notes. Also, I'll put the link to the Facebook page down in the show notes. And if you want to subscribe to the channel, you can do so at any time and get the first dibs on the brand new shows as soon as they come out. I thank you for watching. We'll see you again real soon.